Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alexis Harrington. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Service Access and Program Implementation at OPWDD. I am joined by Christine Snyder, our statewide Employment and Vocational Services Coordinator. First, I want to thank you for coming to our session today. We are really proud to show to you our year in review and all of the amazing work that the team has been able to accomplish. I also want to just say how happy I am to be here at the second annual Dream Symposium. I was lucky enough to be here last year at the first ever Dream Symposium, and I did leave feeling very inspired by listening in to the sessions that I was able to attend last year. It is such a privilege and an honor to be here celebrating and acknowledging the rights that people with disabilities are entitled to, and to be able to share some exciting work that has been underway at New York State OPWDD. The Employment and Meaningful Community Activities team that put together this slide deck has consolidated a lot of work into the short time we are here together in this session. We will get through our presentation as quickly as we can to save time for questions. If we happen to run out of time for questions, or your question in particular, we have included our contact information on the last slide. So yes, this is what I've already said, so we're doing pretty good so far. So OPWDD's goal is to increase the number of people gaining and retaining competitive integrated employment, and we will review some of the actions we've taken to move towards this goal. OPWDD has been lucky enough to engage stakeholders from various backgrounds. What we are really reporting out on today is how we've taken the feedback that we have received to begin improving employment services. This is just going to be a glimpse. There is more work to be done. So you can see here, we've got self and family advocates, provider agencies, policymakers, state partners, national consultants, and provider associations. The recommendations from stakeholders to improve employment services are identified by these four categories: streamlining systems, enhancing services, improving staff training, and removing barriers. Areas we are focused on currently is a culture and a business model shift. There's an adjustment to really focus on that full array of day habilitation or ComHab services only. We've got to move away from that mindset and really look at that entire array of services that can be provided. We're working on identifying new program models and increasing career-specific training for people with IDD. We're focused on increasing community engagement activities and reducing the dependence on site-based services, trying to make it easier to move between services, and increasing the training on employment services. Today we have updates for you on the following areas: this culture and business model change that I referenced, our career-specific vocational training, the $13 million that the governor mentioned this morning, increasing employer engagement, our regulatory and policy revisions underway, and cross-agency collaboration. Now I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. So when we talk about culture and business change, we're talking about developing a more flexible, responsive, employment-focused service system. Alexis made mention of day habilitation services, community habilitation services. We're talking about pathway to employment, pre-vocational services, and supported employment services. We're talking about the year in review, but none of this has happened in just 1 year. Over the last 10 years, OPWDD has made many intentional changes to move in this direction, and this chart depicts some of the work that's been done the last 10 years. So you'll see that beginning in 2014, a series of things have occurred. We introduced a new waiver service, Pathway to Employment, which is a career planning service. And with that change, you saw the number of people employed increase. We redesigned our SEMP regulation and ADM to make more allowable services and supports possible, to make it possible for funding and processes to support agencies so that they could better deliver those services. And we also made it possible that integration and wage requirements were met. So giving agencies that provided these services more resources and technical assistance to make sure they were in compliance and reaching their goals. We also redesigned pre-vocational services. So you'll see that for a period of time, referred to as workshop transformation, we worked with agencies to change their business model so that services were not in segregated environments, so that people were working alongside people that didn't have disabilities, and they were earning wages that were competitive. So this was done in partnership with agencies, and today very few agencies are providing site-based pre-vocational services, and those that do are making steps to, eliminate the use of subminimum wage and create more and more opportunities where people are employed in the broader community earning competitive wages. Like all others, the COVID pandemic did impact the OPWDD service system, and you'll see that the number of people employed dropped significantly during this time. However, that time was utilized by the provider agencies to focus on career development activities. We refer to this as the discovery process, and that discovery process is infused in pre-vocational services, Pathway to Employment services, and supported employment. So that time frame when things were, businesses were shut down and there were less opportunities to be employed, people were not losing the opportunity to learn more about themselves, the type of work they would like to do, and prepare to re-enter the workforce. So you'll see since that time, our numbers have steadily increased, and we're almost returned to our highest number of 8,823 people with disabilities working in the general workforce. I think it's been said earlier today, there's still much work to be done, and we recognize that and are continuing to improve the service system. We mentioned the redesign of pre-vocational services and the redesign of SEMP, and we currently have released a revised SEMP policy and regulation, which further enhances opportunities for agencies to provide these services in a way that's going to be responsive to the people we serve. So we are working with our agencies to expand the services that are available to people so that regardless of where you live in the state, you have access to the support services, combination of services that are going to be responsive to help you gain and retain employment and then advance in your career. So that is, it may be implementing a new service that wasn't previously provided, redesigning services that you currently offer, or so redesigning, implementing, or adding a service. And that is all about expanding access and giving people the opportunity for choice. Because if you only have one provider of service or one service available to you, that's restrictive, and that limits your choice, and that's something that we're working to address. The belief is that people with access to the full array of employment and vocational services can utilize services in combination to help them enter the workforce and advance their careers. You may have a change in status, your employment status, your functioning status, your needs may change, and it's important to have access to the service or combination of services that's going to help you move forward. So we want people to be able to move easily into and between different services so that they're responsive to their needs at any given time. Part of the part of having a strong service system and strong provider agencies is training and technical assistance. And OPWDD has a training partner that we work with to make sure that staff are well versed in the requirements of program implementation and receiving training to provide quality services. We've made some changes to improve the curriculum. And in addition to that, we provide agency-specific technical assistance. So we're meeting routinely with agencies to answer questions that are specific to the people that they serve in their geographic area, and make sure that anyone that's implementing a new service has support on the front end to know the compliance and program implementation considerations before they get started. These priority areas are very much in keeping with some of the conversations we've had today: increasing access to supports and services, addressing gaps in the service system so that regardless of where a person lives in the state, they have access to the supports and services that are desirable to them. The importance of developing job-related skills, and that is removing barriers to gaining access to competitive integrated employment, and that may be through skill development. We are going to talk in a moment about our career-specific vocational training that was referenced earlier, and that is an important step in this direction. We want to expand opportunities and remove barriers, and provide opportunities for meaningful community engagement. You know, we talked about employment being a social determinant of health, employment adding fulfillment to people's lives. But we recognize that that is just one component of a person's life, and that people are, whole. And to be whole, you need to have access to meaningful opportunities in your community, have a sense of belonging and, health and wellness and leisure and joy and fun. And, we want some of those things to be possible for people, especially when they have wages and are able to fully embrace and enjoy all of the things that their communities have to offer. And so much of what we're doing in terms of meeting with agencies and talking about what's working well is identifying innovative models and making sure that those are replicated to the extent possible. There's reference to evidence-based practices or evidence-based models. Those are things that we want to continue to move forward and do more of. The career-specific vocational training program is new and was designed to address a gap in the service system. Pre-vocational services allow people to develop transferable skills or non-job specific skills, but there was really no way or no funding stream to develop very industry-specific skills so that a person could have those skills and then enter the workforce. So in the 2022 State of the State address, Governor Hochul allocated resources to make this possible. Recognized the challenge, and we now have funding to do this work. In December of 2022, OPWDD issued a request for application and put that funding out through a competitive bidding process to agencies. And we received response and have since made awards to agencies to deliver career-specific vocational training. This is more than $13 million in grants over the course of 4 years. And the hope is that with success, that this money will be something that we can fund long-term in the future, and it's not just limited to this grant opportunity. So people receiving this training, it's not just training in isolation. It's training and then the application of these skills and experiences in hands-on, community-based vocational experiences. So that is a component of that. And those vocational experiences are funded through the Home and Community-Based Services waiver. This combination is intended to increase the marketable skills of people enrolled in the waiver, provide job-specific skill training, like we talked about, and then increase the number of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that are in competitive integrated employment. Many of the agencies that received these grants their proposals had within them partnerships with business, partnerships with educational institutions, partnerships with industry experts, so that it wasn't just, a provider of service doing this work. It was definitely a collaborative partnership to make sure that what businesses are looking for is what's being taught in the classroom, and then people are able to enter the workforce upon completion. So people that complete the classes and the vocational experience training will have expedited access to OPWDD's employment training program. And that is an internship program where OPWDD pays the wages for people that are in supported employment services. You'll see at a quick glance here that there is a career-specific vocational training program in each part of New York State, so each region of OPWDD. They're listed here. You'll see the training program topic. So we have programs in hospitality, janitorial services, food services, retail, office skills, custodial. There are lead agencies, and these are the agencies that received the awards, but many of them have partnered with other agencies in their community to broaden the reach of who can be served and who can participate in the classroom training. So important to reach out to the leads, find out who they're partnering with and what agencies are involved. And so much of this is relying on technical assistance from OPWDD. So we have designated people within the Employment and Meaningful Community Activities Unit that are working closely with the agencies that received awards to make sure that their design is good, their curriculum is relevant, and that they are harnessing those partnerships in a way that's effective so that when people are finished, they are entering competitive integrated employment. You'll have the contact information for each agency that received an award here. There's the website for the agency themselves. There are points of contact that are associated with career-specific vocational training. And good to ask, if you're interested yourself or supporting someone that may benefit from this, ask, when is your next class cohort starting? Where are your classes being held? Do you have openings? Who are your partners? I heard mention of, you may be partnering with educational institutions or businesses. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How do I apply? And as I said, the liaisons at OPWDD will help facilitate some of that information exchange and linkage, because we do want to make sure that the opportunity is well marketed because it's new and different and exciting, and we want it to be so successful because we see that it has a great potential to increase the number of people employed in the end. So please don't hesitate to reach out to these folks or the liaisons that are identified on the slides. Increasing employer engagement. OPWDD has done quite a bit to increase employer engagement. If you visit our website, you'll see that we have the Employability Pledge. You'll see that we have an honor roll of businesses that have agreed to sign that pledge. They're listed there publicly. And there are a number of resources that are available online to support businesses in understanding the benefits of inclusive hiring. OPWDD has expanded upon the initiatives of New York State's Employment First Commission. You may recall some work being done in that area, and this is something that continues. Many of our partners here today are working closely together to continue that work and kind of bring that into a new state today. So the commission consisted of several state agency and stakeholder representatives, tasked with making competitive integrated employment the first option when considering supports and services for people with disabilities. Resources like that toolkit that I mentioned on the OPWDD website and the pledge are on OPWDD's website to assist employers ready to expand their workforce and incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion into their hiring and policies. So to date, Over 150 businesses and organizations have taken this pledge to embrace a philosophy of inclusivity by declaring, and I will read this, there's nothing worse than someone reading a slide to you all, but I think this is worthwhile. We support the employment of qualified individuals with disabilities and seek to provide customers and patrons of our business or organization with an environment that meets their needs for accessibility and structure, communication, and interaction with our staff. We encourage other businesses and organizations to join us in taking this pledge, and are proud to join New York State in creating communities that seek to include individuals with all abilities. There is another session being held after this session that is going to talk about accessibility and adding the A into DEI so that accessibility is recognized as well as an important part of those initiatives. The employability trainings that we've held were born in part out of a legislative recommendation by Assemblymember Chris Burdick and Senator John Mannion. They proposed legislation for OPWDD to establish a voluntary training for businesses to better understand the benefits of inclusive hiring so that they could implement diversity within their business through hiring. Governor Hochul signed this into legislation in 2022, and last month, OPWDD, with several of its partners, delivered a series of 3 trainings to start this launch and have another training scheduled in October. So our partners in the employability training include Access VR, the Adult Career and Continuing Education Services Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, the New York State Industries for the Disabled, or NYSID, and OPWDD. So we held 3 live virtual trainings last month and addressed some of the following topics: benefits of hiring people with disabilities, strategies to hire and support employees, website accessibility, workplace inclusion, disability sensitivity, and supply chain diversity. We are looking at this curriculum and making modifications so that it's well received by businesses, and we can get more businesses to receive that information. So our next steps are offering that training in October. So if you want to save the date, that's October 24th. And if you visit the OPWDD table in the vendor concourse, you'll see that there are flyers for that training on the table, and you can take those and register if you're interested. Additional information can be found on the website. Many of those things I've mentioned to you already, but some of the things that I have not are the top 5 reasons to employability, the business case for inclusive hiring, financial incentives and tax credits, and how to find qualified workers. So a lot of good information on the website. We do plan to develop a self-directed, publicly accessible training in the future and hope that we have a coordinated marketing campaign, so stay tuned, there will be more information about that shortly. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Christine. All right, so along the lines of streamlining systems, removing barriers, and enhancing services, there have been several revisions to the SEMP regs and policy. So just some important dates for our SEMP, Supported Employment Regulations. We had released them for public comment on July 13th of this year. The comments were due September 12th of this year, so we are continuing to review and respond to all of those comments before it can become officially effective. For our policy, or our ADM, that was released for public comment with 5 attachments on July 31st of this year, and comments were due August 19th. So we're kind of doing it as a package deal. It's always ideal to have the regs and the policy together, and both of those we anticipate will be released in the near future. So regarding our regs and our policy revision goals, I hate to read off the slides, but I think there's no way to say this more concise. Our initiative changes are really trying to focus on resulting in the higher quality supported employment services. We need them to be more individualized and responsive. We really want to focus on improving the outcomes so that kind of connects to allowing the managers to bill for planning and managing service delivery. We have focused on relieving the administrative burden by streamlining the programmatic requirements and documentation. We've improved flexibility so that people can experience continuity of service, so that kind of fluidity between services that Christine talked about before, and achieving accountability with less prescription. And that was really kind of done in partnership with some providers that shared some real-time feedback with us on what the real burdens were in delivering that service. And we know that if there's a challenge in delivering the service, there's going to be a challenge in receiving it. So we have to make sure that we are able to deliver that as smoothly as possible to be effective. This next one is my favorite to talk about. We save the best for last. This is cross-agency collaboration. So we were lucky enough to be selected as a state to participate in NEON. We love our acronyms. This is a newer one, National Expansion of Employment Opportunities Network. This really focuses on competitive integrated employment for people with disabilities. So this was really the first time that this was issued, and we were very excited to be able to apply, throw our hat in, get selected, work with some amazing partners with over 200 hours of technical assistance provided by subject matter experts at the national level. We did get to kind of draft a first set of employment first principles, really focused on prioritizing services for people with disabilities and increasing employment rates statewide, which is what we've heard everybody talk about this morning and throughout this day. We will continue to work with these partners to try to map out an MOU, Memorandums of Understanding, to make sure that us and our state partners are really clear on all of our roles and seats at the table to support employment first initiatives. We did just hear that there is another round of technical assistance available, so hoping to be able to throw our hat in the ring for that as well. So here are some resources for everybody. I told you that I was going to try to get us through this as quickly as possible to save some time for some questions. I'll leave up this resource page, but I do have all of our contact information on the last side as well. So without further ado, are there any questions out there? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think so. For anyone who couldn't hear, it was how are we getting out the great word about the employability training and the pledge that's available for businesses to really put in their commitment towards creating a more inclusive workplace. I think that's a great question, and I think every person in this room has the ability to help us spread the word and spread that education that we have this resource available to us. This is a newer kind of revamped thing. We did have employability previously as a resource, but this is a completely new and revamped curriculum as a completely new resource to the community. So with that said, we just started the trainings last month. So we do need some help getting that advertisement out there. And, that's why we wanted to bring the flyer today so that everyone knows when that next training is this month. But we're hoping when we move towards the more self-directed virtual platforms that will be a lot more accessible for us to get that out more broad and wide. Right now, they're more live trainings, so it is a little bit more difficult if you can't attend it at that point in time. You're kind of missing out. So we are trying to make improvements to get that out more broadly. But if you have ideas and suggestions, we are absolutely happy to hear them.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And I'll be fast on this one. I also just want to express my concern about, we're talking about opportunities so that we have a range of services that we can shoot for choice. But we have a lot of people with more severe disabilities, and they're also the disabled community. And it's nice to think that they will be employable, but it's not realistic all the time. I always like looking to the higher level work or things that they can do, but I'm sorry to see things like ComHab and DayHab and all of those kind of going away, because it's going to take a lot more to service each person one at a time. There's no job coaches in our agency. My son has 45 minutes a week of work. He could work every day. He is a really busy person, but he's nonverbal. So that's just one example of why that's an issue. And when there used to be the workshops, they were at least busy. People were busy. And there was a concern about the money and what people were getting paid or not getting paid. But I feel like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, having that go away, I don't know. That's just I think we need to think about that population. There's a lot of those people.
So we've talked about some of the initiatives that have been introduced and some of the transformation that's occurred. There is no discontinuing of day habilitation or community habilitation at this time. I think that's important to recognize. And OPWDD recognizes that there will always be people who maybe don't have a goal for employment, but having meaning and something more than keeping busy is what we strive for, and that's why we're putting an emphasis on meaningful community activities.
I
so that
agree.
That people
Yeah.
are together and in communities that they feel a sense of belonging and joy in. So even if employment's not the goal, that there will be a service option that can meet the needs of those people.
It's so hard. Yeah, every individual is an individual. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, I just wanted to be clear. I'm not very familiar with all of the services that OPWDD offers, but is there anything that would a person be able to use OPWDD employment services long term, like if they needed employment support indefinitely? Because a lot of these sound like programs with time restraints on them. So I was just wondering if there's anything that continues indefinitely with employment supports.
That's a great question, and you hear that stated a lot, but I really mean it this time. So there are services that help a person prepare for employment, and ideally, those may be time limited. A person may only need to utilize those services short term, kind of get a boost, and then be ready to engage in employment. Some people may benefit from having those services longer term, and those services pre-vocational services can can be accessed in conjunction with supported employment. And OPWDD supported employment is different in the sense that it is kind of ongoing supports and services to maintain a job and then experience career advancement. Maybe a person wants to change career directions. Our services can follow along with a person to make that possible. And when I talked about combining services and finding the right combination of supports and services to help you reach short and long-term goals, that's what I'm talking about. You know, it's understanding what the service has to offer and then finding a provider that you're comfortable with and then finding the right combination of services to make sure that you're kind of moving forward, experiencing growth and opportunity and advancement in your career if that's indeed what you're looking to do. So it's just understanding the services and knowing that you can use them flexibly in the way that you need to in that moment in time. So there's no limit in that way.
Any other questions? We probably have time for at least one more. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.